from the AI Radio/TV News Broadcast Network. Headline: Google to block access to Canadian news for anyone living in Canada. Lead: Google has followed fellow tech giant Meta in announcing it will block Canadian news content from its search engine in Canada after days of negotiations with the Liberal government hit an impasse over its recently passed online news bill. Lead story: Google has followed fellow tech giant Meta in announcing it will block Canadian news content from its search engine in Canada after days of negotiations with the Liberal government hit an impasse over its recently passed online news bill. We have been saying for over a year that this is the wrong approach to supporting journalism in Canada and may result in significant changes to our products, a blog post from Kent Walker, the company's president of global affairs, read Thursday. We have now informed the government that when the law takes effect, we unfortunately will have to remove links to Canadian news from our search, news and discover products in Canada, and that C-18 will also make it untenable for us to continue offering our Google News Showcase product in Canada. The Online News Act passed last Thursday and would force platforms like Google and Meta, Facebook and Instagram's parent company, to strike deals with Canadian media publishers for sharing, previewing and directing users to online news content. The Liberals say the law is meant to end tech titans' dominance of the digital advertising market, stating that in 2020, both platforms took in more than 80% of Canadian online advertising revenues as the country's journalism industry faced hundreds of closures. Under the new framework, platforms would face financial penalties for failing to comply with the legislation. A number of news publishers, including Torstar, which publishes the Toronto Star, have lobbied Ottawa in favor of the legislation, and already have deals in place with both companies for the sharing and repurposing of their content. Torstar, along with other publishers, has partnered with Google for its News Showcase service, which helps boost the profile of trusted publishers. When will my Canadian news be cut off? It is expected that the law, previously known as Bill C-18, will come into effect in 6 months' time, which is when Google is set to pull the trigger. The company had been hoping for specific reassurances from Ottawa before the regulatory process, where further details regarding how the law will work in practice will be finalized, gets underway. Last week, just as the bill was approaching final passage and royal assent, the government agreed to discuss the possibility of addressing some of the most critical issues, which we welcomed. In that discussion, we asked for clarity on financial expectations platforms face for simply linking to news, as well as a specific, viable path towards exemption based on our programs to support news and our commercial agreements with publishers, Walker's post notes. While we appreciate the government's acknowledgement that our concerns were reasonable and confirmation that the law will not apply until they adopt implementing regulations, they have not provided us with sufficient certainty that the regulatory process will be able to resolve structural issues with the legislation such as forced payment for links and uncapped financial liability. The decision comes as Canada's news industry is grappling with major moves to navigate the future of journalism in this country. On Tuesday, Nordstar Capital, which owns the Toronto Star and Metroland Media, and Post Media, which owns the National Post and daily newspapers across the country, shared news of a potential merger between the two companies. 2 weeks earlier, CTV's parent company announced it was slashing 1,300 positions and closing or selling 9 radio stations. It is believed that Google and Meta's combined responses could result in millions of dollars in lost revenue for Canadian news publishers, possibly resulting in the shuttering of some smaller and independent outlets. Both platforms staunchly opposed the bill from its earliest stages, arguing they will be unfairly forced into agreements for driving significant amounts of traffic to online news outlets and generating key revenue for publishers as a result. Google Canada has said the company linked to Canadian news publishers more than 3.6 billion times in 2022, pushing an estimated $250 million worth of value to Canadian publishers. Heritage Minister Pablo Rodriguez told The Star on Tuesday that both sides had been engaging in constructive conversations and working towards a solution. I understand that they need more certainty, they need more clarity, which from a business perspective, Makes a lot of sense. I always base my decisions and my actions on common sense. If it's logical, if it makes sense, then I'm definitely ready to discuss and see what we can do together, the minister said. But those talks hit a deadlock, with a Google source telling the Star late Wednesday the company was far from reaching an agreement. Google has been more cautious in moving forward with its threats compared to Meta, which announced last week it would officially ban news content from being posted or shared on Facebook and Instagram in Canada in the hours before C-18 received royal assent. Meta Canada's head of public policy told CBC's Power and Politics on Tuesday that because the bill passed without the company's desired changes, it's too late for the government to resolve the standoff through regulatory changes. We are proceeding towards ending the availability of news permanently in Canada, said Rachel Curran. We wish we weren't here, but we are here. There's really nothing at this point that's going to alter that trajectory. Rodriguez told the Star earlier that day that if the company wanted to meet with him, they have my cell phone. The minister also said he doesn't make decisions based on threats and that he never will.